3 remakes, 3 absolute bangers, and now Capcom's gone quiet about what comes next, but the leaks might have just given us our answer. Most people think the answer is obvious, and maybe it is, but what Capcom's been hiding underneath that answer, that's where it gets interesting. If you're ready to go that deep, you're in the right place, stranger. Will we get the reveal this year and release date the next? What is Capcom actually hiding about Code Veronica? That's what we're here to figure out today. So make sure you pack your first aid spray and watch your back for Crimson Heads. We got memos to read. Here where it gets real. One tweet changed everything. And as per usual, it started with a trusted insider, Dusky, laying fan theories of Resident Evil 5 Remake to rest. Thus Golem stated in his tweet, Code Veronica Remake has been in development since 2022 and around 3 years of dev time now. Code Veronica Remake is ahead of schedule due to a very smooth dev cycle though. RE5 Remake has not been greenlit at this time, 100% sure on both these things. And this is where we get our first real look at the roadmap. In December, Dust claimed Code Veronica would be announced this year. He didn't just guess, he gave us a year. In his tweet, he said, "What I've heard is Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake should be announced next year and released in 2027. Then Zero Remake releasing the following year in 2028. I'll keep you posted if I hear differently. For now though, Requiem hype time, Resident Evil 9 is 2.5 months away. Now it's out." Even Nate the Hate, another credible leaker, reconfirmed it. If you watched my videos before, you've probably heard this next part, but for the newcomers, welcome. I'm going to break this down quickly because I need you to understand why the timing for me makes sense. Capcom runs on a 3 to 5 year development cycle for its Resident Evil titles. It starts with a concept phase, move into a greenlit production where the project can actually be restarted if the core feeling of the series gets lost, and everything is built on Capcom's RE engine. That's what gives every modern title that signature high fidelity look while keeping development efficient. That framework is exactly why Code Veronica timing checks out, because when you look at their release schedule for Resident Evil 7 and upward, we got in a game almost every single year. And even though fans have been calling for Resident Evil 5, it makes more sense to remake Code Veronica first. The franchise needs it. The story demands it. The timeline tracks. And then there's this. Susie Hunter, also known as Spear Hunter, a renowned Resident Evil enthusiast, tweeted back in March that Resident Evil Requiem contains a Code Veronica Easter egg. Check this out. She tweeted on Twitter, "In the bar lounge in Rose Hill, there's a suspicious bottle that says Nico. If you unscramble the words, it spells out Veronica. I wonder what's next for Resident Evil," smiling emoji. Now I'll probably mispronounce that bottle name, but it is what it is. All we know is that backwards it spells Veronica. Capcom is dangling crumbs right in front of our faces, so the question isn't if we're getting Code Veronica, it's what it's going to look like when we do. What if Code Veronica plays exactly like Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, and instead of cutting content, Capcom is actually adding to it? That's not speculation, that's where evidence points. Code Veronica has had fans in the chokehold for years, the demand is real, so let's follow the trail. Here's everything Dusk is confident about. Rockford Island goes semi-open world, similar to the design philosophy behind Resident Evil 4 Remake and Requiem. Environments built with room to breathe, side activities, a sense of scale. Code Veronica follows that same blueprint. This time, Claire has a bike she repairs and uses to traverse through the levels. Think about that segment in Requiem where Leon hops on a bike from the BSSA agents for a short action-packed run. Capcom clearly liked what that mechanics did for pacing, and they're expanding on it here. Reuse what works, build on what has potential. Very on brand. Also, Steve is back, same crush on Claire as the original, but this time less creepy. Dust says he'll be more abrasive, overtly curious, and genuinely bad at reading personal boundaries, which honestly, that's a more grounded, believable version of a character. A Steve you might actually root for. Wesker gets a bigger stage. The HCF has been elevated to a central plot thread. More Wesker, more scenes, and a Wesker versus Chris boss fight confirmed, and the directors behind this remake, the original directors of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4 remake, are returning, the two best remakes in the trilogy. No disrespect to Resident Evil 3, it's just me, it's fine, but I didn't like that remake. Those directors coming back in a single most reassuring piece of news in this entire investigation. But the quote that sealed it for me, the one I keep coming back to, is this, straight from Dusk. In a tweet, he stated, "What I've heard in Resident Evil Code Veronica in general is just a bit expanded. Nothing is cut. Some stuff really heavily mixed. I hear it's a remake with the most things changed are happening differently than you may remember. But every enemy, location, and major event is there. And much is even expanded. Chris falls into this too. Capcom realizes this is Chris' first time appearing in the RE Engine remakes as his younger self. Some people want to see that, so Chris isn't just a small part of the game, he's expanded. And it's just as much as his story as it is Claire's." Now here's where I step off the evidence trail for a second and give you my read on what's actually happened at a much bigger level. I'll be straight with you. I never played Code Veronica, I know, but here's what I can clearly see from the outside looking in. We saw Jill in the remake of RE3. We saw Leon and Claire in RE2 remake. We saw Leon again in RE4 remake, and now for the first time in the RE Engine era, we're getting Chris, his younger self, reintroduced to an entirely new generation of fans. This is not an accident. Capcom is definitely running a long game. Code Veronica isn't just a remake, it's a reintroduction. And the reason that matters is what comes after. Because the current leak landscape is pointing toward a RE remake on the horizon. And who is at the absolute center of RE1? Bingo, Chris Redfield. And of course, we had Chris in Resident Evil 7 at the end and Resident Evil 8, and we got to play him a little bit. But RE9 plants the flag on where the franchise is going. Code Veronica bridges the gap, bringing Chris back into the focus, letting a new generation bond with him. And then Resident Evil 1 remake completes the arc. Capcom isn't just remaking games, they're building a Chris Redfield pipeline, and Code Veronica is definitely their first domino. That's the thread I can't let go of, and I don't think you should either. Drop a like, subscribe, you don't miss what we uncover next, because between the leak trail, the director confirmation, and everything about Chris Redfield we just mapped out, this story is definitely nowhere near finished. We're gonna get more leaks soon. Enjoyed this one, click the video up top. My full Capcom roadmap covers every title that they've got in the pipeline over the next few years, or hit the video on the left for my deep dive into the Fallout series. Alright, Sleepy Gamers, count your sheep, catch your Z's, and go to sleep. Peace out.